It's great to be here. Welcome to ProfCon. It's been a great session so far, and I realize too that my session is right before lunch. So I know the pressure is on. So thank you, Rich, so much for the kind introduction. So my name is Karen, and I tell people now I'm Karen, but not a Karen. Got to work on that personal branding here. So I'm a millennial named Karen, so I've heard it all from my students. So today, as Rich said, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the work that I've been doing with the Bird's Nest with student agencies, but really it's kind of the next evolution for applied learning, experiential learning, engaged learning. And I'm open to all sorts of questions. If anyone has any questions after or throughout the rest of ProfCon, happy to do that. So a little bit about me. My day job is a professor in strategic communications, and I have been at Louisville now for 12 years. So as many of my colleagues have told me, I'm vintage now. I'm like, very cool. So I'm also the director of the Bird's Nest, which I'll talk a little bit about. I'm an author, consultant, so that brings up to why I am a coffee addict, proud of that. I live and drink coffee all the time. I'm also a dog mom to Amanda Wade, who I wish I could have brought him here. He would have loved the cold weather, but he's back in Louisville. And I've talked a little bit last year about my connection with Ryan Reynolds, so we're besties. He might not think that, but I still think we are, but he's awesome. So I'm going to talk a little bit about student agencies. And so just as a question for the audience, how many of you at your university have a student agency? 1, 2. Okay, a few of them. So it's actually not something new. So student agencies have been around all across. So like I've had a lot of colleagues in advertising and public relations schools that they have various agencies around. Some are focused on advertising, some are clearly focused just on public relations, but they are really, maybe focused on one particular department. So I went to the University of Florida, Southern Cal, and Tennessee, and they had separate dedicated agencies just on one of those topics. So it's pretty common. They are usually associated with a professional organization like American Advertising Federation, Public Relations Society of America, and they're usually overseen by a professor of practice who has industry experience, who has the understanding of what goes into building an agency, how to manage it, but also working with those client relations. So this is something that is not necessarily new, but the journey that I've had is it is something that we're seeing more of a focus at various universities across the nation because they capture not only that applied aspect that we're trying to do in our classrooms, but that engaged experiential learning that really taps into marketable skills that a lot of industry professionals are looking at to take it to the next level. So what do student agencies bring to the table? So it is really a great digital and physical touch point for the university. It's engaged learning, it promotes experiential opportunities. It also is a great recruiting tool. So if students know, wow, I'm able to not only get classes in digital marketing, strategic communications, public relations, but I'm able to practice and apply these skills for real clients in the real world. That gets them excited. It also gets administrators excited, and boosters, donors, and others. And it's really real world, tangible, and applied metrics. Like whether or not you're doing what you need to do for an agency or not. Are you taking on clients? Are you raising funds? Are you getting placements for students? But it's really more than just a student organization. And it really is, we're covering topics that are sometimes not always covered in the textbooks. And that is really important for students to recognize, is there are some lessons in the business world, in the communication world that are not always highlighted in the textbook. As a textbook author, I'm like, well, this is something you don't learn in class, but here's how it works in the real world. So good things. But there are some student agency must-haves. So one of the things that I've learned across the board in this less than a year journey is that as digital marketing professionals, or StratCom professionals, we talk all about these various items, and all of these items play a huge part. So the big thing is a brand identity. And so when I talk a little bit about the bird's nest, this was like the first thing that we wanted to do. And I figured, okay, as a StratCom professional, if I can't brand a student agency, I'm out of a job, right? So having a brand identity, logo, tagline, et cetera, but you really want to build a foundation for your agency. So an employee handbook, policies, procedures, roles, expectations, contracts and guidelines. So do you have employee guidelines? Do you have contracts for your clients? What are the policies that you have in place in bringing on potential clients? So all of these things have to kind of be basically incorporated. But some of these others you might be seeing, that might be pretty surprising. So there are, for us, a home within the university. So technically, we are part of the university. We are part of the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Louisville, that's where my department is. But it is also open to all students. And then, of course, we have designated accounts for donations and student fees. So I learned more about donations and student fee setups, in terms of the admin level, more than I could have imagined during this part of my journey. But it's cool. So then others that you see are our channels, so social media channels, websites, emails, et cetera. So basically setting up the framework for building a student agency even before we launched. And then templates that, again, tie in to the branding that you've created for your student agency. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we went about in creating those templates, but something to kind of tie in to make it look like, okay, you are actually an agency that is doing some great work. And then, of course, the other component is having basically your board of advisors, or what I like to call your own Avengers team. Basically a group of professionals, alumni, community members, or even outside of your community who can advise based on your particular areas of expertise. That was really important to have set up for the student agency. So other must-haves, again, university support, that's a big one. Being able to tie in what you're trying to do for the student agency for university support. So this means getting your dean on board, your chair, provost, president, and there are certain things and certain ways that I've learned that really help motivate moving the needle from point A to point B. And what worked for me is I kept reminding my colleagues, we are the only university in the state of Kentucky that does not have a student agency. That got their attention, but also bringing up the fact of how this ties into our grand challenges for experiential learning, community engagement, et cetera. So there's different persuasive messaging and strategies you can incorporate along that way. But again, I talked a little bit about community engagement and then press and media coverage. So my background's in public relations, and so sometimes you have to be your best spokesperson, and you have to work with the university communication and marketing office to make sure that they know, hey, we're doing some really cool things, or we have this new initiative that we think the university stakeholders and publics will want to know more about. So that's kind of the framework, but now I get to talk about a case study, the bird's nest. So I do have the website here, birdsnest.lou.com, if you want to check that out. So you might be thinking, okay, Karen, what is the bird's nest? So this is a student-led, and that's very important, a student-led full-service strategic communications agency. So as my role as a director, I view myself as a team member, kind of helping organize, making sure that everything runs smoothly, coordinate with clients, but really it's the students who are running this particular agency. So they focus on a wide range of different areas from StratCom, PR, influencer marketing, branding, video, event planning, basically beyond. So they created the name, the logo. If anyone asks me to create the logo, they get a stick figure. I can't draw worth anything. But they also came up with the tagline. Again, we wanted to name the agency that was somewhat aligned with our mascot, which is the Louisville Cardinals. But we also wanted to have a tagline, like what is the sole purpose that we want to go and do for our students? And so I gave these 4 students who are our founding members, I gave them a task, like come up with our tagline. And they brainstormed, they came about, and they're like, we got it, Dr. Freberg, hatch your potential. And I'm like, okay, that's good. I had a little bit of a misty eye there. I'm like, that's good. Proud prof moment. But the purpose is really what I saw. So let me back up a little bit. So when we got the green light to do the student agency, we knew right up we wanted to do things differently because we wanted it to be broader than just having one focus of discipline. We also wanted to make sure that we invited any student who wanted to be part of the student agency, regardless of major or level. So we have undergraduate students and we also have graduate students. Again, somewhat different. We wanted to create something that was modern and forward-thinking, but at the end of the day, we also wanted to have a place where we could cultivate and retain talent in Louisville. So I had a lot of industry professionals come to me, basically saying, we're looking for talent, we want to hire students, but we can't find them. Because a lot of my students, they go to LA, they go to New York, Chicago, et cetera, and they would love to stay in Louisville, but they just have not been able to find the right position. And so really it's about also bringing together a physical and digital place where we could be a focal point, a place on campus that the community, industry, alumni, campus could come together and really build out that community, right? So we really wanted to make this place a showpiece and as a recruiting venture to market to prospective students, non-traditional and traditional, and really kind of view this as kind of aligned with our university brand. So with that being said, we also wanted to be able to create a showpiece experience for the students, a place where they can be able to work with clients and say, I did this for this client, here's what I worked on, and be able to be part of the conversation and really walk away past graduation with a lot of value based on these experiences. Similar to what Stu said about the messaging, the stories that are happening at the university level, a lot of people are questioning, what is the value of higher education? Are we getting students the value in their education that we really want them to have? Student agencies can have them tie in their curriculum-based experience with practical real-world applications in the real world. So that's been a lot of fun. So our unique value statement is really to give students a seat at the global C-suite table, to give them that experience based on what they've learned in the classes, based on what they're doing in their other internships, but this agency to give them opportunities that if they were able to talk about to other groups, people were like, okay, you got our attention, right? So that's a lot of pressure. It is a lot of work, to kind of get these students on board. And I want to make sure that I take a step back here and just say, a lot of these students, they are willing to learn, they're willing to grow, and sometimes we just have to say, okay, if you're willing to work hard, I'm going to meet you halfway, and we'll make sure that you are prepared and ready to go to work with these clients. So the timeline that we have, so again, as I mentioned, we're housed in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Department of Communication, but one thing that we do have at the University of Louisville now is we actually have a Center for Engaged Learning. So this really is a kind of a center that focuses on all applied and experiential learning opportunities. So we kind of fit under there as well. So we actually have a lot of support from that group, and so we have another group on campus that helps amplify our messages. But as I said before, this did not happen overnight. We actually were in the planning stages to really go full force with the student agency in 2020, but we had a little thing that happened in 2020, just a little global pandemic, no big deal. So we had to pause for 2 years, right? We had to pause for 2 years just saying, okay, we're gonna have a holding pattern for now, we're gonna do it, but we don't know when. So last spring, I was given the green light, back to business, March of 2022. And basically was told, okay, you have the idea, now go do it. Administrators are like, yeah, it'll be easy, build a student agency, maybe in a week. We'll come back and check with you. It's like, okay. But we actually built the foundation in the summer. So the summer really was spent doing research. So I had one student who was actually one of the founding members actually do the brand identity. She was the one that created all the logos and designs. But she also did something that I thought, again, we were talking in the previous conversation here in this room earlier about competition. Students are very competitive. My student Haley, she was like, Dr. Freberg, I want to do a competitive analysis to make sure that what we're doing is unlike anything else. I'm like, go for it, go for it. And so I let her on her way, and she came back, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. So we've basically launched in September, started taking clients this past spring, and we are moving towards year 2. So what have we accomplished? We established an agency, and that was no small task. I've always been a big believer of client-based work, but this was a whole nother extension. So lots of coffee consumed, lots of long hours, but we were able to launch it. We've had some award-winning work for PRSA and American Advertising Federation. So we actually submitted some pieces of work that we did for our own branding that got some awards and other projects. And we have established a board of advisors, which are all listed on our website. So it was really important for me to not only pick individuals who were very supportive and very encouraging for this effort, but really had specific skill sets that would add to the student agency. So we have someone who does all of the events for the Kentucky Derby, just a small event. We wanted his expertise to help us out with event planning. We have someone on influencer marketing, that's part of their PR agency. We brought them on board. So it was a very strategic move of like who we want to bring on board. So again, building your Avengers team. And so figuring out who could help you in that effort. So this is also our brand identity. Again, you want to have a distinct logo, tagline, brand colors. So one of the things I would recommend for you to do is if you're going to be starting a student agency, have a meeting ASAP with your communications and marketing team, especially whoever oversees your university brand guidelines, because they are very protective of that. I actually got in trouble one time for using the wrong plaque in a PowerPoint slide by my, yes, I got in trouble. I got called into the principal's office. I'm like, really? Anyway, so I knew right then and there, I was like, okay, my first meeting is going to be with them to make sure we were okay. They said, well, don't use the cardinal bird for your logo. I'm like, we're not. But they basically said, use our colors, use our font. So we basically had a brand tagline. So I think this is important. So for your students to know that everything needs to be consistent with the content, with the messaging, the visual view. So we have our primary colors, and then we also have our accent colors across the board. But this is where also I think a lot of my colleagues who want to do student agencies, they come up with, they're like, okay, Karen, we want to do a student agency, but we know that there are certain tools that we need for our business or for our agency that may be very expensive. All 3 of these have been free for us. So we are an Adobe Creative Campus, so we do get that for free, but they do have some free options for Adobe Express. But Agora Pulse has Agora Pulse Academy. They do have a program that if you are part of a university, if this is a class or a class initiative, they do work with you to get access for Agora Pulse. So Agora Pulse is a social media management tool. So we use that for scheduling posts, doing competitive audits and listening for our clients. Canva. Canva is a very popular tool as well for students and for professors. But a lot of times people are like, well, we have Canva Pro. Do we get that? How do we add on new members? Canva has a program called Canva for Newsrooms, which gives newsrooms at universities free access to Canva Pro. I pitched them and asked, would you consider doing this for a student agency? And they told me, well, you'd be the first to ask us, so yes. They were the ones that helped create this presentation. So it's branded, so you can kind of see our logo. They created templates for us, for proposals, invoices, et cetera. And then Monday.com. Monday.com, of course, is a project management tool. So we wanted a tool that would allow students to kind of keep in track of all of the different projects and assignments they do. Monday.com has a student program that all you have to do is sign up and they have to verify you're a student. But once they do that, it's free. So I'm a big proponent of free tools, especially when you are given a budget of not that much. So basically, you know, like these are the tools that we primarily use. And so that's one of the things that I think was very helpful for us kind of getting started. So these were the tools that we used, highly recommend. And if anyone needs a contact at Canva to talk to, I have their contact. Diana is fantastic. Been in contact with Agora Pulse and Monday.com and then Adobe. So in our first year, here are our clients. So we've had a range of clients, which has been really cool for our students. So some of these are wide-ranging. So we've had a chance to work with the University of Louisville on a couple of things. The startup, Derby Fit, which is a plant-based supplement. We've had a couple of university clients. Like the tag team we're about 45 minutes away from Fort Knox. So this is actually their human resources team. So we've actually done some workshops with them. And just, a couple of, small events, Churchill Downs, Kentucky Derby. We did some user-generated content for Auntie Anne's. And then we also helped out with the PR and media team at VCon. But this was great experience for us, especially for the students, to be able to apply what they're learning. So the way that we go about in bringing clients on board is they have to fill out a form. I look over it, see if it's expected. If they have 50 million things they want done by tomorrow, I'm like, well, no amount of coffee in the world will help you there. But what we try to do is match the client's needs and expectations with the students' expertise and needs, and see if we can create a win-win situation. So we have been able to work across the board with a wide range of different teams. So again, for VCon, this is some of the students with Gary Vaynerchuk. They helped out with media relations and media press content. So they were able to get hands-on experience with event planning. Creative execution, so we actually had a student we had a group of students. One took this photo of Derby Fit, but there was another student that wanted to be, again, she wants to be a creative director. She was able to direct the shoots and the product launch for the video and stuff. Brand building, and then of course content creation. That seems to be a big part of what we're trying to do with the Bird's Nest, is really develop content, because that's where a lot of students want to go. And so this is just a couple of other slides, workshops, Auntie Anne's, and then again, meetings with Churchill Downs. But again, the goal is to create a win-win situation for clients and the students, so then they can be able to create that building relationship. And then for the students, they're able to say, I was able to pitch an idea to Churchill Downs, and they actually implemented that idea for one of their events, which was actually something that happened earlier this summer that the students were very excited about. But it's those experiences, those stories, and seeing their work in the real world that really makes that powerful connection for the students and for the agency. So I like to look at things both from a positive but also challenge standpoint. So I've not been in this, officially this role for a little over a year. These are just some things to kind of be aware of that I've learned across the board. One is everyone loves the idea of a student agency, but one role that I found as a director, like if they see something exciting with the success of the university, everyone wants to talk about it, but everyone wants to own it and be part of it, which you have to kind of say, hey, you're able to help us in this way, but hey, this is kind of our role here. So everything takes longer and costs more, so we have some grant plans for a new space that we have at the university for the Bird's Nest, and imitation is the highest form of flattery, which has been great. I'm a very open and sharing person with my work, but it's always been interesting when you see other people copying your idea, or they DM your board of advisor team members and ask what you're doing and have them share it with them. So that's always fun. But turf wars, again, are something that you have to be aware of, especially with donors. There are some donors that are dedicated to certain team members and certain departments, and so you want to be mindful of that. So it's good to be aware of that. But there are so many opportunities here, like the experiential learning outcomes are tremendous. The stories, the lessons learned, the product to showcase to prospective students, to donors, to the community, to show the value that we're doing and applying what's happening in the classroom with the real world is tremendous. It's a true test of walking the walk and talking the talk for professors. And I really felt this as a challenge in a good way, to kind of really basically practice what I'm preaching, like in my classes, in my books, et cetera. And so it's a real opportunity, and it gives students hands-on experience, and you're able to test internships and applied work done in other courses. So it's another level of tapping into the applied work. So I know I'm a few minutes, left in my presentation, but here are some best practices. You really want to set your goals, keep everyone on track. So planning, as we heard earlier on the sales team, very important. Time management is very key. You want to make sure as a professor to negotiate time, pay, or extra supplemental resources as part of your team. So technically my role is an admin. So I tell people I'm the Diet Coke of admin. I'm not full administration, I'm just the Diet Coke. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of work, but you want to have that support. If your university and program wants to do this, they need to, you know, as Jerry Maguire says, show you the money. I actually used that for my students one time, and they were like, what's that? That old movie? I'm like, ooh, okay. Humbled. So again, organization is key. You want to create also, I know I'm running out of time. You want to build a culture to thrive. So really leading by example, being a leader yourself as a professor, set the tone and culture that you want to build as part of the agency is really important. You want to lead versus dictate. So you want to basically embody that, but also set standards for ethics and work professionalism in your work, and that really showcases that for your students. So final thoughts, again, this is not going to go away, but this is another value-added component that you can share with your university to stand out and market, because student agencies are something that you can own and build upon. But I also think too, when people think of fundraising, that's one of the things we get to do. I think it more as friend raising. We want to be making friends to support our community, and if they want to donate to us, that's great. But we want to focus on our KPIs. You know, a lot of times we think about KPIs as keep people, you know, or key performance indicators, but we really want to keep people or faculty, students, clients, admin, faculty, et cetera, interested, impressed, involved, and inspired. If you're able to do all four of those, that builds a culture, that builds a brand identity, and that also supports initiatives to support you financially down the line. But also, embrace the zag when everyone else zigs. So if you see other people going this way for student agencies, if you go a little bit off to the side, you stand out. And that's the way to kind of set yourself apart from others, you know, and again, help out with the branding purposes. So, okay, I finished with less than a minute left to go. So I do have my contact information, the Bird's Nest social channels, and our website, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have.